So we move on to step 13. In step 13 we need some more components. So we need our N1s, which are these guys here. These go out to the wheel axles if you like. We also need our B2s. We need a couple of these. These are our stub axle that takes the axles out, and that'll be in there. Okay, we're going to need a couple of our drive shafts, so our drive shafts will take the axles out. Going to need a couple of the BA5s, which are these longer screw pins, which are the 3 by 32 millimeters. A couple of the BA6 screw pins, which are 3 by 22 millimeters. And of course we need our bearings. Now if you're doing plastic bearings, of course you do plastics, but as you know, plastic bearings are not for us. We're going to use proper bearings. Okay, need to pop this all together. I'll do one side and then I'll show you how I did this side, because it's just literally mirror image of each other. Okay, so let's see if we can do this in one swoop for you. So you take your this is your B2 part. Take one of your bearings, pop that into the bottom. Take your axle, drive axle out. Okay, so that's now ready to roll. Then you take, this is how I do mine because it's easy to do it this way. So pop this in and just make sure you get the orientation right. You're screwing in from this way. So take the longer of the screw pins, pop that from through the bottom one, and collect and hold that axle in place. So you just might need to jiggle it just as it needs to go through. There we are. And then screw the bottom one in place so it's ready. Okay, so that's there. Okay, right, now you've got that one in place, and of course you've had to put a little bit of a grease on the axle and on the bearing, etc. A little bit of grease there, a little bit of grease on the tips here, not too much because it can act as a paste gatherer. So anyway, pop lightly, very lightly grease these ends, pop that in, that drive shaft in, and then when you've popped that drive shaft in, I'm just trying to move that out of the way and hold that in place so you can see. You then fold this round so that you can collect the other end of the drive shaft like that. And then take your top arm, bring your top arm down, take the smaller of the screw pins, it's the 22 millimeter one, and then pop that through, collect the hole, give it a little jiggle as you collect the hole, and screw that through and tight. So that is now done. So now you have your drive shafts and stub axles assembled, and step 13 is completed. Yeah, see? Perfect. We're moving along smartly now, and we're now on step 14, and we're also going to open our bag B. So here's our bag B with our components, and we're also going to need this bag, which is the bag which contains the F components, which is for your spring dampers and friction dampers. So we can make 2 of the fronts and 2 of the rear damper sections. Okay, so let's get the bag open and then do what we need to do. And I'll get all the components together according to this and cut the right size of the tubes. You've got a little bit of tube cutting here for the right sizes. All right, here we go. So for step 14, we got part A and a part B. Need some components. So we need these guys here, which is your F1 parts. So we need 4 of those. We need 2 of these guys, which are the F2s. And as you can see, these are smaller than the F3s. Okay, so we've got 2 of the F2s and 2 of the F3s, front and rear shocks. Need these guys here, which are the F4s. Okay, we've got 4 of those, they're exactly the same. Then need to pay attention because your springs, you've got slightly different springs. So your front springs, that's these guys here, BB1, and you've got the rear springs, which is this guy here, which is BB2, and you can see there's a slight difference in the coils. Okay, and then we also need 4 of these, which are the BA8s, 3x10mm, BB4s, which are these guys, the front damper shafts. This one here. We need also BB5, 2 of these, rear damper shafts, and we've got our rubber tubes here that we need to cut according to the size on the drawing. So I'm going to use a nice sharp blade to cut that to size. So I'll get these cut and ready, and then we'll go from there. So going to have a go at showing you how to make one of these friction shocks. So first things first, we need our F4 part. We also need our BB4, which is the smaller of these shafts. We're going to need our spring, and we're going to need our body, okay, our F2. So we're effectively going like this with the spring, like that, and we're going to be taking our screw, our shaft, and we're going to drop that shaft down through the middle. Get your screwdriver, and we want to collect the F4 part and screw that through. You might find this a little stiff, so if you do, pop another device through there like that, and then it can hold that while you screw that down. And how I screwed this down is just literally until it stops. You can feel when it stops. Not too mad. And just for sake, I just won't measure the same. I've measured from here to the top, and that's 32mm, which is what I've made that dimension from here to here. Okay, so now we've got our spring in place, and then we take our rubber, a little rubber hose that we cut. We've got to put a little bit of grease on it, so it's greased around like that. That's nicely greased around. You don't have to go too mad, it just needs a little bit of greasing on it. Pop that in the middle like so, and then we take the next component, which is this F1 part, and you line these up. There's a little key here, key area here. Line them up and take one of your BA8s and screw that into place, and that holds the cap in. Okay, and then you screw that like that, and then screw that home, and then once it's home, that's the front one done. Oh, don't do what I just done, slippery fingers, so take your time. There we are. So that is a friction shock done. That's the front one's done. I'll go do the back ones. And we do the last of the rear ones here. So same process. And this time I measured from the base there to the top, 54mm. Yep, 54. Like that. Now you have your rear. So that's the front and rear friction dampers completed. Step 14 done. We are on now step 15, and for step 15 we need the 2 shock absorbers for the rear, which are these 2 bigger guys here, and the smaller ones we'll put on step 16. We need this component, which is a C2. It's quite a chunky component, the upright, to attach the dampers onto. We also need BA8s. We need 4 of those, which are the 3x10mm self-tapping screws. And we need these guys here. If you haven't seen these guys, these are the step screws. These are 3x14mm. We need 4 of those. And we're going to need our rear axle assembly and motor assembly, because we need to screw these all together onto here. And to get the orientation of it correctly, So if you look here, the bulging here of the spur gear cover, this is this side, and the motor is this side. And doesn't it look dinky? 380 motor. I'm going to see how it goes though. It's nice, but I have got a possible an upgrade here for this. But doesn't it look dinky? I'm going to see how this runs. Right, so let's get on and do it. So first things first, the C2 part, get the orientation correct with this plate facing backwards. Take your rear shock absorber and we're going to place that in this hole here using one of these little boys here. And it's quite a straightforward step, quite easy steps. So we're going to get our screwdriver and we're going to pop them on. Okay, so let's do that now. That's one on. And let's do the same again with the other side. That's the first part of that step. And then we have to attach this to the gearbox. And we do that using like that, using the BA8s into there. I'm not going to show you me screwing 4 screws in. Come back to you once I've screwed these all home. So now I've got to the point where I've just tightened these up in a crisscross fashion, and these are the 4 screws, BA8s, that hold this on. And then we take our other step screws and we need to attach the bottom of the shock absorber, and we need to collect the outer of the 2 holes. Okay. So, okay. They're not bad actually. For friction, they're not bad. Impressed. Anyway, that's step 15. We now move to step 16. Next, we're on step 16, very similar to step 15. We need our front shock absorbers, we need our front assembly and front arms, etc. We also need 2 of these, which are the BA6s. They're the 3x22mm step screws. We need these, the 2 BB9s, which are the 3x14mm step screws. Look at that, my little display getting all muddled up. And not forgetting 2 of these BB14s. These are 4x6mm tubes, so like a tube. And we're going to pop these into place on the front axle like that, and screw through top and bottom on both sides. Show you how it's done. So the first step we need to do, a little bit of tiny amount of grease on these little tubes, and I've got enough on here on the rest of my brush. You don't have to go too mad, because otherwise it's going to end up caking with all the dust and things. So you pop those in there, and this tube, we've now got to somehow get this through to the front, and we're going to take on the bottom arm here, we're going to take this bottom hole. Okay, so we're going to slide that down. There we go, there we go. Had to move that collar a little bit, and then we're going to take our longer of our step screws, and again there's a touch of grease here and there just to help it, but not too much, otherwise you'll end up with all it mucky everywhere, and we don't want that, do we? and then pop that through the hole at the front and collect the collar and go through to the other side. Okay, and then we screw that tight. I've got to do the same on the other side, so just do that and I'll come back to you. So installed those components in there. There we go, and screw the other one through in exactly the same way as the other side. And then we're going to need to pop these. These are the 3 by 14mm step screw. Just a touch of, I might put a very thin amount of grease on there, and that goes into the top suspension upright, and we screw that home. There you go. So now we have the front section again with those. There we are. Step 16 completed. So we're now on step 17, and step 17 we need a few more bits from the parts trees. This is all major bits, big bits, shall we say. So we need this part M8, which is this battery cover. We need 2 of these, which are the D3s. 1 of these, which is the D4. Going to need 1 of our snap pins. Going to need 4 of our BA8 screws, which are 3 by 10mm. Bit of this sponge, which you can see I've cut down to size, because it was 20mm by 20mm, as you can see with this other one, and you need to just cut 5mm off. So use the drawing to help you, or you can use a ruler. So that's this piece of sponge, which is cut to shape, and we need the chassis, of course. That's a nice big stiff chassis. Right, okay, put all these bits together, nice and straightforward. First little step, let's pop in the sponge into the area in here, which is in here. Okay, kind of got to get that right quite first time round. Okay, so sponge tape in, and then we'll screw on the components that we need. So let's take this component, screw that into place using these 2. Then we take these ones and put these on here. So I put one of them in now. Then place your battery holder, one over this side, screw that back in there. There we are. And then put your snap pin through the hole, like so. That is step 17 completed. So step 19 is all about servo. I kind of got a little bit ahead here because I needed to get the servo neutralized, so it's in the central position. So you do that by connecting it up to your receiver and your electronic speed controller, and put a battery on and use your control to zeroize, so it's zeroized. And it's just a case of getting the relevant parts here, which is P2, P4, and then whichever one fits your servo. So in my case P5, placing those on and screwing that through so it's screwed down and it's now on the servo. We also need to put these little things in here, which are the BB10s, which are little ball connectors. These are like a 5mm ball connector. You basically connect that in through here like so, and then you put a little locking nut on the other end, which is quite straightforward to do. So you do that for both of those on each side, which is there and there. Here we are, done. So we tighten those up, and once we tighten those up, that'll be step 19 completed. So as it shows on the diagram, you just use a pair of pliers just to hold that and nip that tight. There we go. And the same again on the other side. A pair of pliers to hold that tight. There we go. There we are. Step 19 completed.